Okay, so I'm just going to start with blocking out the mesh. I'm just going to use mostly primitives for that. So what I'm going for is, some kind of futuristic, but still like retro-inspired, plasma shotgun or something similar. So I'm going to be using quite a lot of scripts and macros, but I'm going to take the time and go through most of the time that I'm doing something that is not, obvious. Most of the things I'm doing is pretty much based on Modo's actual normal tools, but combined in ways that might not be obvious. So I'll try to point out every time I do something that is, out of the ordinary in Modo. So I usually like to just copy paste things out a bit, using just the basic primitives, just to get the proportions there very quickly. I don't detail up anything until I've got just some placeholder boxes there, just to see what the proportions of the gun will be like. So I'm just adding placeholder things for the grip and everything. So very ugly. Okay, let's see. Oh, I'm way off center. So for example, there I was just running the center in all axis command, which you have in the vertex tab here. You can center all. So I use that a lot because a lot of the time I just create a primitive in thin air, and then I just go ahead and center it afterwards, to make sure that I'm working across the axis. So I don't have any problems with mirroring and so on. But it takes way longer to actually create the primitives on and make sure that they're on the axis when you're creating them, instead of just quickly doing that afterwards. So that's why I do that. So I'm just gonna keep bashing these out a bit, and because I have a pretty good idea in my head of what I want, so I'm just gonna start pushing these shapes around until I get something that is relatively close to what I had in my head before I can start figuring out where to go with it. So it's definitely too short, for example. And I wanted to have, bit of a rifle grip. So I want to have this, little bit of, Wild West, World War, or pre-World War I feeling. So it's a little bit of retro sci-fi, so not so many hard angles, 45-degree angles and so on. So this is just some very sloppy. I use quite a lot of sides in my primitives. So I'm going to be using several different methods on this model. I'm going to use sub-D modeling, but I'm also going to use a lot of the the rounded shader and low poly models, because it's so fast and it's very good for just iterating on design and just making high poly renders. It's really great for that. So I'm going to be using a mix of those, and when you're using the rounded shader technique, it's good to have a starting point with a lot of polygons, because that way you don't have to, you know, go in and add more later if the pieces are looking, you know, too low poly. But at the same time, if you're, you know, I generally don't, or I didn't used to use so many polygons in my cylinders, because if you sub-D them, the polygon count is going to increase really fast. And I do try to be relatively efficient with my poly counts, even when I'm doing just design and high poly work, because if you're making very, very complex designs, it just eats up unnecessary time. Right. So as soon as I have something that I'm happy with the blockout, I will go into more detail and start to block things out for animation as well. Just, you know, very basic animation stuff, but just so that it's functional, so I know that it would work from a design perspective. I mean, it probably wouldn't be functional like a real gun, but sci-fi, so get away with that. But I do want it to make sure that it animates well, like already from the start, so that you build that into the design from the very beginning. I'll also start assigning basic materials. So just some quick variations, just so I get a sense for which material is which. So this is one of those pieces that I probably would, you know, as soon as I get very basic shapes in, I would probably just go in and make this into sub-D. So I'm imagining this to have some kind of, you know, revolver style, whatever this is called in English. But then, so I'm trying to have some, you know, old school, like retro old design references here, and try to keep it like a little bit like that for like the final gun, and but then try to get some sci-fi elements in via the design work here, without, you know, breaking the way it looks over here. So I don't want it to be like, you know, I don't want make it feel like it's two kind of technologies, like, you know, welded together. I want them to fit together relatively well, but I also don't want to go in too much detail on this gun either, because it needs to be like relatively quick to make for the sake of the tutorial. So this one here doesn't quite work. So I'm just toggling on symmetry here. Put that on a toggle, so I can just toggle it on and off. I'm gonna do my best not to forget when I use things that are custom, but it's so easy to forget which ones are actually it comes with Modo or not. I'm using a lot of scripts. If you're using Modo seriously, often you should definitely install Seneca scripts. They're really great. They help a lot. A lot of them are very useful. Stuff that you wish was standard in Modo. So a lot of these meshes are, not quite mirrored when I'm just, moving them around and stuff. I'll just go in and delete like half of them later and re-mirror them. Just, they don't have any detail or anything yet. So I'm usually very sloppy when I'm in this stage and just, because I'm not going to use any of this geometry anyway, most likely. So a bit too big. It's important to remember to turn off symmetry when you are scaling something that is on the axis. Otherwise, you actually scale them like this. I do that all the time by mistake. Go ahead and change this for cylinder. Make sure it aligns reasonably well with this, yeah. So now, for example, I'm going to use a custom script, and I'm going to use a boolean, and I use this quite a lot. It's very handy. For example, it's very handy for doing things like this. This is a cutout, and it's done. Works great when you're using the rounded shader, but basically you can use the built-in booleans in Modo, which you can find here in the mesh edit tab. You have the booleans here, booleans and solid drill and so on, but that requires you to work with like several layers. So for example, this layer will subtract on the background. That didn't work very well. And you can use Modo's built-in booleans, but I prefer to use Seneca's quick booleans, which are much faster, because then you can boolean using the same layer. And when you boolean something, Modo will complain that the mesh is not closed. And since Modo 9, you don't have to have the things that you boolean on closed. So what I did, mine is a bit faster than the normal one, but I'm basically using his macro, but with a few tweaks. So just does that. So quick cutout. And now I'm just gonna turn on the preview render. Like this. Just gonna turn off the directional light. So doesn't look like much yet, but I'm just gonna take everything here. Let's call it metal 1. We're gonna set the specular to 100. Setting the specular to 100, since it's Modo's new default material is physically based, so if you use 100% specular amount, it's not going to take the diffuse into account at all, because it's going to be 100% specular. So if we take a look here now, look like this, like reflective, and what we can do, we can go in here and we can take the round edge width and just crank that up. Okay, that was way too much. Like say 6 millimeters maybe. 10. Alright, so what this does is that it's basically rounds out the edges like this. It has a few limitations. On 90-degree corners you will have some artifacting like this, but it works pretty well, and works really well with booleans, because you don't need a clean geometry and you don't need to care about subdividing anything. So it's really good for quick renders and just making especially for like concept design work. So let's see if we can continue this blockout a bit. So this one I'm gonna mirror. Just gonna put this in a new layer for now, and just mirror it across the x-axis and turn on the symmetry. So this one is a bit softer since it's you know, the wood handle, and I'm just gonna do this base in sub Ds, so that because it's, you know, a soft shape, so it's much easier to manipulate. And I'm going to be using some edge weighting on it. So if you press tab, you get normal sub Ds. If you press shift tab, you get the Catman Clark ones, which is what I will be using. And here you have the subdivision weight map that needs to be selected for the edge weighting to work. And then here you have the vertex map tool, so you can put the vertex map menu, and you have the edge weight tool here, where you can control the weight. And I basically have a hotkey for that. So and there are a few different values that I use. I use 0% and like 100%, for example, if you want it to be completely hard like this. But if you are cranking up the subdivision level to be above level 2, so level 3 is usually what I have as my default, which you can set here per mesh. In the surface tab here you have the subdivision levels. If you set that to 3, you can also use like softer gradients. For example, if you put this at 20% instead, using the so 20%, so 0 is like this, and then 100 is like this, and 20 is pretty good value. So I use that a lot to harden things up, but I don't want them to be completely hard. But now I'm just poking things out like this, so I'm going to keep it hard. Just use the bevel mode here to bevel this out. Just gonna do the same here, just set the hardness to 100%. I really recommend setting up hotkeys for these kind of things, because it's going into the tools by hand like that is very time consuming, especially if you know you're gonna be using them quite a lot. So this one is not quite where I want it. Something like that. But I also want to continue this shape in here, so just gonna create a cylinder here. So I want this shape here to continue. So hide that. Let's see if I can just get at least a rough approximation. I need to add another cut here. Just harden that up. Make this a bit smaller. Something like that. And of course this is not going to be a hole, so just going to put some metal in there. Don't have to align up all that well. As long as it's covering up. Okay, so I want this to rotate from this point here when it opens up, so from here. So I need to add some, or I don't need to, but I feel like I should add some more pieces that connect this. So I'm gonna add another piece here. So I'm almost only using the normal tools, like the primitives, the most basic tools during this blockout phase. I think pretty much the only thing that's complicated that I use is the booleans. Everything else is just the very basic tools with hotkeys on them. That's why I don't go, and click in the interface for doing things like this. I just map this to a hotkey so I can increase the slice amount, slice numbers. Okay. Something like that. I want this one to be a bit wider. actually. I can go into a bit more detail over here. As you can tell, I'm kind of, you know, skipping around a lot. That's pretty much how I do it when I design things. I don't sit still and work on one like segment at a time when I'm looking things out. I basically, if I see something that I want to design, or like if I have an idea, like suddenly I'm like, maybe this should fit over here, I just instantly go there and I add that before I forget. So I'm not very methodical when it comes to the design process in terms of going, you know, area by area. I just jump around and you know, take a step back and then look at the whole, and then whatever pops into my mind that I want to do, I just do. So I don't really have any good or like methodical way of doing this, how I approach designing things. I just jump around a lot. Alright, so this is obviously very, very basic, but it's enough to start setting up very quick like animation just to demonstrate the functionality. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take all these parts that are going to move with the when it's opened up. I'm going to take them, I'm going to put them in a new layer. I'm just going to call this front. And yeah, you can rename here. I also have a hotkey for that. So, and then this one back. And then I'm just gonna take this, I'm just gonna drag drop it and parent it. And now it's parented. And then I'm gonna move the center. There's two ways to move to do things when you're setting up animations in Modo. You can either move the pivot or the center. Moving the pivot is a bit more annoying in my experience, because that actually changes the location of the mesh in a way. So what you can do is that you can go here to center mode, and then you have this little thing here, and you can just press the move key, you get the move gizmo, and I'm just going to go here to the side viewport and just click this and move it. Just going to move it here. And now when I go to item mode, which is shift space by the way, it's just gonna rotate from here. So now even if I create something in another item, for example, I'm just modeling some other thing here, and then I want to put that in here, and this part is animated, I can just, you know, paste this into the item. So for example, I noticed I forgot some pieces here. This one should also be in here. And the good thing now is that I can just parent things to this item now as well. So if I need to add more complexity, I can just add it to this chain here. Just gonna delete that item. So I want there to be some kind of functionality where the gun opens up. So what I imagined was something like this, that they would move back, like out and back like this. So I think that looks pretty cool. So I'm gonna separate this into two different layers. For now I'm just gonna delete this one, keep this one, and just call this one maybe side 1. Okay, and this one I'm just gonna move, so I don't need to set the center at all. So what I do need to do though is to make an instance. So you can just right click on it and then just select instance. And now I have an identical copy. And I'm just going to scale it minus 100%. There we go. So now I don't have to keep updating like 2 layers when I'm modeling, because you can't use mirroring when you have split them up into different layers like this, because they're not actually the same layer. So now we're gonna do some quick just mock-up animations, just so that we can track that it works. I will do that by going to the animate tab here, and actually I'm just going to quickly go back here. Yeah, so what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to take these 2 layers and I'm just going to parent them to the front so that they will follow like this. Okay, so here I'm just gonna, here we have the timeline, and I'm just gonna key some rotation, and you do that just by clicking this button here. You can also have the auto key function on, but I don't like it because, you know, sometimes you want to move things around, you don't want to accidentally key things just because you're moving items around. And just gonna put another one here and just throw the rotate and just do this. There we go. And then I'm just going to put another one here. Just zero this out. And then I'm going to take this one and just do the same for the translate channel. And I'm going to first just move it out like this, and then just move it back. Very simple, just so that I can easily check when I'm building, so that I don't accidentally add any parts that will, you know, intersect. And we do want this one, so I'm just gonna take this and pretty much just copy the values that I had there, but invert them. So in this case, just gonna add a key to same keyframes. Not quite sure why it has 2 values. Not sure how that happened. Oh, probably because I parented to the front. Right, so yeah, probably because of the center. And then they inherit that. So okay, back to animation tab. So pretty much just taking this value here. I'm just going to take that and move it in the other direction. The same here. No, that one should be the same. Okay, that. Okay, now that we have that, we also need to add some pieces that connect these two, obviously. So I'm just going to use the thicken here to Working a bit more on this piece. So this is another those things I have a hotkey for, just scaling something like that in the in any axis, like the x-axis, like that. That's something that you're gonna see me doing a lot as well. So one of the things I want to do is I want to connect these pieces a bit more with these. And I don't want them to be like completely bare, so I'm gonna add some piece here. Just gonna bevel this one out, delete it. Little trick, because now that when I turn it up like this, looks like it's part of the surface. This one. If we're gonna have a solid piece here, we of course need to do a cutout. This one. So it's gonna use the booleans there. Hide the background so you can see here. And I need to do the same thing here at the front. When you're using instances like this, it can quite often get confusing which side you are creating things on, but there we go. Okay, just hop over to the animation tab. See that works, but I also want to add something, you know, that actually moves this part, so it's just not magically hovering. So with some, you know, pieces that holds it. So let's see how we should design this. It needs a rail of some kind as well. Now I'm just going to put some boxes here very quickly. We're in the blockout phase. Also, it gives me a bit of time to think about what I'm actually doing here. So it needs to be able to slide like this. So actually here we have two options. Either I should turn this into one more piece here, or I'll have the slide function on this one. Actually, I think I'll move the rail to this piece here because it's going to be more visible in the renders anyway. So put the rail here instead, and since the polygon's location is not moving, I can just put those here. So that's something I do quite a lot. I like a model in this animated position, and then I shift things between layers when I see that they fit and they keep their position that they have. Okay, so this one also needs. Actually, I can just create a cube for that. I can actually take this cube. Let's create this hole. Yeah, that works. Just move it back maybe. Alright. Now there is one more thing I really want to block out before starting to go more into the detailing, and that's the inside of this. So start by doing this, and I know that I want to have some kind of mag, or whatever it's called in English. I'm not good with correct gun terms, so don't kill me. So something like this that fits inside, but I do want the fit to be a bit more complex than this. So start out with something a bit more complex. Try to avoid being too symmetrical. So something like this, maybe. It's a good starting point. Then it's going a bit overkill here, probably. Block out. So take this and use the thicken. To have a little handle thing to pull out mag. That. Alright, I think that's it for the blockout phase. So now we have something that can animate. You can see how it will function. It's not very, advanced, but it will do the job.